Happy Tuesday, everyone. Welcome to the August session of Tech Talk Tuesday. I'm your host, Pratik Patel, and I'm a technology consultant with Ingram Micro. Every month, we showcase the latest innovations with a panel of experts so we can help my channel partners and resellers to really uncover new opportunities. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. For this month and the remainder of the quarter, we'll focus on hybrid cloud. And the reason is really quite simple. Even though the cloud-based alternatives are growing in popularity, many businesses today continue to make investments in their local infrastructures and on-prem applications. Whether it's for security, compliance, or simple practicality, local hosting is something that seems to be the best choice for a lot of workloads, such as edge applications, remote desktop virtualization, databases and database engines, and file servers. For these locally hosted services and applications, customers have been turning, in particular, to hybrid converged infrastructure, or HCI, as a way to reduce cost, raise performance, and improve availability. But as customers are increasingly considering HCI, to gain these efficiencies on their on-prem workloads, they can still plan to draw upon cloud services as well to supplement local infrastructure and make their HCI implementations even better. In other words, embracing HCI does not need to exclude cloud integration. Hybrid cloud is a journey, and the challenge for many organizations is to really find an HCI solution that is not only well suited for their specific hosting needs, but also provides a simple, optional, let's say, on-ramp to the cloud services, all the while offering excellent performance at an affordable price. And that's precisely why my panel of experts from Microsoft and Lenovo are here today to help us to not only understand the what, but the why behind the technology. So to help make sense of it all, joining me today is Brian Bottalico, a Microsoft channel executive. Sorry, am I still on?
Yes.
Yep.
We can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. I actually lost power, seems like, but I have some reserve. Something happened. So, but okay. So Brian Bottalico, a Microsoft channel executive with Microsoft. Hello, Brian. I'm really thrilled to have you here today. Could you tell us about your role at Microsoft and give us an insight into some major initiatives you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Pratik, for the intro. Great to see all of you, and very happy to be here. So, as mentioned, I'm Brian Bottalico with Microsoft. I'm responsible for the partnership between Lenovo and Microsoft here in the United States when it comes to partnering with all of our reseller partners as well as our customers. And so, some of the things I'm currently working on are how we start to integrate a little bit better with how the edge is driving cloud consumption, how Windows 11 is going to have an impact on our market. So, really excited to talk to you guys today about hybrid cloud. Obviously, a big key strategy for Microsoft, and I'll elaborate on that as we kind of go throughout. So, looking forward to the conversation, and thanks for the invitation.
Yep, thank you, Brian. Next, we have Phil Searles, a Solutions Architect with Lenovo. Hello, Phil. I really appreciate you making the time, for us today. Could you tell us about your role at Lenovo and what cool stuff you're working on?
Sure, I'd love to. So my primary job at Lenovo is dealing with some of our global accounts that we have, working on all kinds of bizarre bleeding edge technologies. But another significant part of my job is being the subject matter expert for the North American environment for Azure Stack Hci and our solutions that support that technology suite. So in that role, I work with not only our Lenovo field teams and account teams, but I spend a lot of time working with channel partners and resellers, trying to help them position, understand, explain the value of HCI, the value of Azure Stack Hci, the value of Think Agile MX and how it complements that whole solution set, and the value prop they can work with their customers on to communicate why they want to use it.
Perfect. Yep. Thank you, Phil. And finally, we have Aaron Rothfuss, a Senior Strategic Sales and Product Management Leader for North and Central America with Lenovo. Welcome, Aaron. I really appreciate you joining us today. Could you tell us about your role at Lenovo and that cool title you have? It's like almost like a sentence there, really, and the type of activities you were involved with.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pratik. I'm happy to be here as well. I echo my other two panelists, right? We're really here to, think about cloud as cloud smart, right? We're going to talk about how, cloud first changed to hybrid cloud and how that really impacts the business partners and customers today. My role within the organization is really to bring the sales force together with the tools and with the other capabilities that Lenovo has to go deliver these solutions, right? We're not just a hardware company. We are a solutions-based, outcome-based company. And I really take that job seriously to make sure that we're taking the best that Microsoft has to offer and the best that Lenovo has to offer, not only from a hardware, but a services and delivery and organizational perspective to really produce those outcomes for our customers.
Yep. Thank you, Aaron. So before we begin, let's get some mechanics out of the way. First, we'll share the recording after the event, and you can also find that same video on YouTube. Next, my Solutions Sales Executive, Jamie Turkowski, will be reaching out afterwards for a follow-up activity. And finally, today's event is really just for you. So please post all your questions in the chat. So I have these experts on the call. They can definitely help with any question you might have. I think that's it. So let's get started. Phil, let me begin with you. As a continuation of the hybrid cloud series from last month, where that panel discussed hybrid cloud, distributed cloud, and multi-cloud, can you help us understand how those technologies are really enabling customers to modernize their infrastructure?
Thanks a lot. That's a great question. So from a cloud perspective, the key enabling aspect of cloud is the immediate access to critical technology that customers have. The ability to engage in a new platform, new technology, new application suite, investigate application solutions, technology solutions that a customer could use to enable and improve their business is nothing if not astounding, right? Now, whether it's pure cloud, distributed cloud, hybrid cloud, they're all different methodologies to optimize the deployment or implementation of a solution. But what is key in enabling customers is the easy access to that technology. In years past, you had to invest large dollars into hardware, software, OSs, hypervisors, storage to even engage in an analysis of potential technology options. Now it's sign on to a website, enable some resources, start doing your stuff, and if it works, great, optimize it. If it doesn't, pay your bill for that usage, move on to the next thing. So much more effective for customers to leverage.
Perfect. So along the same lines, Phil, could you speak to the evolution of the IT operations, that really has led us to this digital transformation of today, and how that really made the cloud a centerpiece of that transformation?
Sure. So digital transformation is a great term we use today to reflect all the changes from the analog ways we used to do things into this world of technology doing everything. And there are a couple of aspects to that which really leverage the key value propositions of cloud, which is the flexibility, the scalability, the variability of it, and the global reach, right? So from that base, you can enable almost any kind of activity. The key, though, along with the cloud, though, is access to information, access to data. And this is where the edge is increasingly seen as a key part of the cloud solution now in digital transformation, because you need to get data into this common repository, this common focal point. Whether anything's done with it at the edge or not is a different discussion. But just normal edge technologies, even IoT technologies, and the further extension of just putting sensors and interface points in everything we possibly can. With that accumulation of data and information, now you can do some really innovative things in real time across the globe or across your entire organization. So a very powerful technology base.
Perfect. Thank you, Phil. So, okay, Aaron, please help me out. One thing I believe that many of my partners really get confused about is really the difference between Microsoft Azure, Azure Stack Hci. Could you kind of help level set us on the technical differences between all of them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point, right? Microsoft has evolved over the last two to 3 years with their naming and the way that they approach the market when it comes to Azure, right? And I think the naming today reflects the way that Microsoft views the market, right? So all of these areas are Azure to them, right? They're areas where cloud can be leveraged, and to Phil's point, where you can dynamically change the way you do your business by working all of these three technologies together. So when we think about Azure in general, we mostly think about public cloud. We think about going out to a website, attaining a resource, like Phil said, deploying a workload on that resource and getting a result. But there are also two other areas, right? There is Azure Stack, which is the hub version, an on-prem cloud option, if that's a requirement. And really what we're focusing on here today a lot is Azure Stack Hci, and that's their compute. But what I love about the Azure Stack Hci and what differentiates it from a lot of other offerings, again, is that word Azure. And why do I say that? That's because the entire offering is put together by Microsoft, right? When you talk about the file system, when you talk about the hypervisor, the operating system, the cloud, the management suite, it's all Microsoft. And when you have that cohesion, when you have that single pane of glass, it delivers a much more friendly user experience, but again, then delivers ROI faster, results faster, and more manageability as far as being able to control your work environment. So really, when we talk about it, we want to think about Azure as the public cloud, and we want to think about Azure Stack Hci as things in that compute environment, as well as the edge IoT that Phil talked about. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about how Lenovo engages in that hardware space as well.
So then, Aaron, talking about that, time to value, I heard about the dangers of DIY, Microsoft Storage Spaces Direct or S2D projects, how they've actually gone awry and, they ended up with unexpected results, not to mention the time and money they've invested in that whole effort. That's why I know there is there are Lenovo validated solutions to help simplify that journey to the cloud. First, could you kind of help us understand what that Lenovo validated solutions really means, and then really what the benefits can come from these validated, Microsoft Azure Stack HCI configs from Lenovo?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a team of engineers up in Kirkland, up in Seattle, that really focus on optimizing the solutions that Lenovo brings to market. And they're different verticals, right? There's SQL-based solutions, there's Kubernetes-based solutions, there's edge-based solutions. We optimize the different platforms that we have to best work in those environments. So yes, there is a bit of fine-tuning there, right? When you want optimal performance, when we think about the Microsoft platform, right, it's been demonstrated to do over 13 million IOPS in a single cluster. That takes a bit of effort, right? That takes some optimization of key components to be able to deliver those results. But again, when you deliver those type of results, you get those faster ROI metrics like you spoke about. You get the better user experience. You really, you do a little bit of work on the front end, which Lenovo's already done for you in conjunction with Microsoft to get those immediate results on the back end. And I think that's the real value prop of the Think Agile MX solution that we have here at Lenovo. And again, our partnership with Microsoft to be able to deliver it as an appliance-based solution to your partners.
Just to kind of follow up on that, how would these validated solutions really help my partners in VARs?
Again, to me, it's an immediate ROI, right? You're not worried about, will this system do what I'm asking it to do? Will it deliver the solution or the outcome that I want it to deliver? Yes, it will, because we're telling you that we've gone out and we've validated these different solutions in these different application areas and different compute IOP results and things of that nature. And on top of that, the other nice thing I think that Lenovo has done is we've created white papers on deployment guides, right? Lenovo came out with the first ever wireless deployment guide for Azure Stack HCI, leveraging our SE350. And I think that's a really great value prop, right? Not only have we gone out and told you, here's the components that you need, and here's the components that are eligible for the Azure Stack HCI Think Agile MX solution, but we're also telling you that, hey, here's how you put it together, right? Here's the stuff that we've done. Here's the mistakes we've made. And we're not going to let you go down that same path. We're going to let you leverage our expertise to go deploy it. And again, deliver those instant results to their customers that'll make it a much more pleasurable experience.
So Brian, thank you. I know took a little while for me to get to you here, but in a recent CRN article, it stated that something like the on-prem data center is dead or is sinking like the Titanic, something like that. What are your thoughts on that sentiment? And really, what can you tell us about the continuation for the need of on-prem and hybrid cloud? Here, I'm thinking of like verticals such as healthcare and other industries where data privacy regulations really govern how and where the data can be stored.
Yeah, a bit doom and gloom, right? I'd say sinking like the Titanic is a bold statement to make, and I disagree to some degree, right? Are we seeing the massive growth, pre-cloud growth of on-prem data centers? No, and what we're starting to see, right, is kind of what you said, is specialized views and verticalized views. And listen, Microsoft's strategy has always been, since the beginning, a hybrid strategy. And what does that net down to? It nets down to choice. Every customer has a different set of requirements. Every customer is in a different industry. Every customer is looking at their requirements differently. And so offering them the choice that best suits their need has always been Microsoft's strategy. And so as we've built out our technologies, as we've built out our strategies, as we've built out our offering sets, I think what we've seen over the last, let's call it 6, 7, 8 years is, we see it get deployed in Azure, we see it be built up in Azure, and then we see how those requirements can then spill down into how customers can maybe leverage them on-prem. And I think we're going to talk a lot more about, Azure Stack Hci and the value that brings. But that is where we're always going to go with our strategy. I always use an example, right? This idea that, well, everything's just going to move to the cloud. Yeah, I mean, I think great workloads that can work well in the cloud have moved there. But let's take an example of a scenario where we want or need data very close to compute. We're starting to see more and more automated vehicles, right? And if I'm pulling up to an intersection and I'm about to go through it and the light turns red and my car is on autopilot, if my car doesn't have autopilot, but let's say it did, do I really want that data, being processed by a sensor, transferred to a data center, computed, decision made, sent back down to the car? I mean, are you willing? I'm not willing to give myself a half-second latency, because that means the difference between stopping before the crosswalk or running right through the crosswalk, or halfway through the intersection based on how I drive. And so there's a reality that solutions that are close to the edge or on-prem or something along those lines will always be there. And giving customers the ability to create solutions and have the choice, I think, is always going to be part of our DNA. And I don't think it's sinking like the Titanic. I think especially we're going to start seeing more and more customers that are looking at their on-prem environments or looking at their specific environments or edge requirements, and they're going to start refreshing those. But when they're going to look to refresh those, they're going to take a look and say, well, what is the right solution that I should put in place now? How do I take advantage of all the investments I've made in the cloud, bring some of those services and capabilities down from the cloud into my on-prem infrastructure? So if they're going to refresh, it's not going to be in the old standard way. They're going to look at something new and something different. And I think the partnership and the solutions that we have with Lenovo are certainly going to be a great offering set that you guys can all provide to your customers.
Perfect. Yeah. I love that point of view. That's excellent. So far, Brian, we heard a lot about solutions from Lenovo and Microsoft, but I know there has to be more to that than basically just collaborating on a lot of different solutions. Could you kind of please elaborate on what that Microsoft and Lenovo partnership is, and really help us understand why this partnership is important for for my partners and resellers?
Yeah, I mean, a big question here, right? I mean, clearly Microsoft and Lenovo have an amazing partnership at a global level. And so, with that comes a lot of co-investment, and it comes with a lot of strategies between our two organizations. Lenovo is the #1 PC manufacturer in the world, has a massive, server data center business as well. And so it's clear that relationship is key to a lot of the what we're providing to customers. When he kind of gets down a couple of levels, specifically to some of the solutions we've already kind of talked about around Azure Stack Hci and what Lenovo references as Think Agile MX, it's what Aaron mentioned. It's really the fact that we have co-invested and co-engineered these solutions together, right? So we've looked at the value that Lenovo hardware can provide. We look at the software requirements that we have. Lenovo has best-in-class, record-breaking performance, on their, hardware capabilities around, I think, Aaron, you mentioned around SQL and some of the other services. And so, when we look at that partnership, it's really comes down to the core of that co-engineered approach to make sure that we have clear, validated, robust solutions that can be, delivered to meet all of the customer needs out there. And so when I think about the partnership, it really gets all the way down into, side by side at the desk together to design these.
So also, Brian, how does it enable, my partners and resellers to really deliver those solutions, and those new possibilities to their customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's confidence, right? I think one of the things that you have to from my point of view, like I sit a little bit more on the business side, and so it's great to hear Phil and Aaron talk, and I love being surrounded by people that are clearly much smarter than I am, and so thank you guys for shoring up the technical side of this. When I think of this, about why or how you should be thinking about delivering this to customers, it's that confidence to know that we've come in together on these solutions. They've been vetted and tested by Lenovo. They've been vetted and tested by Microsoft. So you can have a lot of assurance to know that what you're delivering is best in class. And so when I think of that Think Agile MX portfolio and what we're doing with Lenovo and what we continue to do with Lenovo, you guys should really be taking away as you're going to talk to customers of, wow, okay, I'm going to go talk to them about their challenges and know that I have a best-in-class team behind me that's always going to land and deliver this. And I certainly welcome Phil or Aaron, to add, any of their thoughts, to what that kind of what they would take from that.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Brian. And I think, what really makes the synergistic the sense here, right, between the partnership and delivering it to our customers, really, again, is the value that Lenovo can bring to this equation. And I talked about it a little bit, but what I want to make sure that people are aware is, right, we are, as Brian mentioned, in an engineering loop with Microsoft, right? We literally across the street, right? We're in Kirkland with them. But the other things that I want to mention, right, is when you purchase something like a Think Agile solution from Lenovo, you get Think Agile support. And what that means is you're going to get a local North American phone number. You're going to get folks there 24/7, able to help you. And it's included with the price of the purchase, right? We're not adding cost to it, included to help you with this solution. And if that's not good enough, right, if you need additional, we've got an amazing solutions and services team that can help with deployment, can help with knowledge share, bring you up to speed, help you with data transfer, setting up security profiles, teaching you how to do things like disaster recovery, Azure Kubernetes services, Azure Virtual Desktop. I mean, these guys are just the best at what they do. And we have a bunch of Fortune 100 companies that we're working with now, but we've also deployed 1 and 2 node solutions, right? With the Azure Stack Hci announcement here about 6 months ago, they now have a single node stretch cluster solution as well that we're working and we've deployed. So across the spectrum, again, Lenovo is hand in hand with Microsoft in this, and we really see this technology as a way for not only large organizations to optimize their operations and their deliverables, but also down to the small, retail and smaller customers that are just looking for a more reliable, easier to manage solution that scales with their business and fits into I think the management and frankly, it sounds weird to say this again, but the GUI, like the actual interface that Microsoft delivers, because you're familiar with it, right? You've worked with other Microsoft products that have a very similar look and feel. So it's a really, really easy transition from that perspective as well.
Perfect. I know we kind of talked about their products here. So, you mentioned the Lenovo, Think Agile MX solution, Phil, a couple times here. So, so I believe it's kind of a good time to just take a deeper look at it. Can you elaborate on what it is and really what the customers get with that solution?
Sure, I'd love to. So Aaron and Brian both made some excellent points on this so far. Once again, from an overall messaging point of view, Think Agile is our Lenovo's solution branding for what we would call an appliance, right? we have lots of servers, and we can, to me, I look at them as Lego building blocks, and we can put them together any way you want, and the customers can do it too. It's all parts and features. We've all built PCs in our basements. So you can go that approach. But as Brian was saying, when you're in a business and you have mission critical business to move and work with and support, you want something you know that you can trust and has been vetted every way possible, right? And that's where this Think Agile came from. So we have this for various solutions. For the MX branding offer, this is an Azure Stack HCI focused solution. So we take all our best capabilities and practices from the hardware, all the Microsoft Azure Stack HCI software requirements, hardware requirements, feature functionality requirements, put it together into a solution set that meets those requirements. We work with that machine with Microsoft to validate, test these features and functions to make sure it is working and stable and supportable. So rather than now building it yourself, you have a working box and it will do the job it is meant to do. Within the MX portfolio, we have a number of sizes of these boxes. And that's just to give the reality of that not one thing fits every requirement. And quite honestly, even the portfolio we have within MX will not fit every requirement known to mankind or to our customers, but they fit the 80th percentile of requests we get from customers. We also have them in two varieties, which Microsoft is well aware of and supports as well. We support what they would call the validated node, which is just a hardware box. We have many customers, large and small, who go, yeah, I know Azure Stack HCI, I know Microsoft, I know what I'm doing. I just need the hardware that's been vetted and tested, so give me that, right? We also have what we call the integrated solution or integrated system, which is the hardware, the software, services, all tied together in a pre-packaged appliance methodology, right? So here it is, basically you get it, plug it in, turn on some simple services to integrate it into your production environment, and you're good to go, right? So it depends what the customer's looking for as have those two offerings. But along with that, so this whole set, the other thing we've done to wrap around this whole offering is not just hardware and hardware validation, but many of your customers have dealt with firmware before and firmware levels and firmware management. So as a part of the solution offering, we build what we call best recipes. So we actually pre-validate the complete portfolio of firmware that box requires, that server requires, with the solution as we come out on a regular basis. So you can always be sure that if you need to upgrade your firmware, there is a known working and tested set of firmware for your cluster that has been known to work and been tested before, right? Which is a huge relief off many customers' shoulders. Along with that, as Aaron was saying, we have our Think Agile support structure, which is you pick up the phone and a person answers the phone at the other end. It's not a voice recognition unit. It's not push button 1 or push button 2. It's, hello, my name is fill in the blank. What can I do for you? I got this, I have this problem, and they'll work with you. If it's determined to be a Azure Stack HCI code issue or problem or bug, then they will warm transfer you to Microsoft, and we work with them in partnership on this, and they will provide excellent premier support for what you're trying to do from that point of view, because they are the experts there, right? We handle the hardware, we do the triage there, right? So once again, it's trying to wrap all this around so you can have a comfort feeling that what you're getting will meet the requirements of the job at hand.
Okay, Phil, along the same lines, what are some of the services that you recommend my partners and VARs should always leverage when they're really proposing a solution to their customers? Here's something I'm thinking of here, like services that could help streamline their process for them.
So every situation is a little unique, but still understanding what the workload is that's going to go onto the platform, if at all possible, is key to get the right sizing or understanding of the resource capability you're trying to deploy, right? So at Lenovo, we have a tooling we can run on existing environments to pull their usage numbers, how much they use, what they're consuming from a resource point of view, and then use that to actually build and size appropriately a cluster, right? We have, as Aaron was saying, deployment services. The simple of we'll set it up and get it plugged in, connected to your production environment, and there you go, to any level of complication and uniqueness that you need, right? It's just a question of knowing what it is you want to do, what your desired endpoint is from a technology point of view, what you may need from a skills support and education point of view. If you're new to Microsoft, don't know how that's physically possible, but if you've never worked with Microsoft before, you know, we have the whole host of support within Lenovo. And if there's anything we don't have, we have our friends at Microsoft who we can complement with to support a customer, right? So, you know, it's pre-work, pre-sales understanding and design. And if your partners need help and want to talk about it, there are people like myself and others like me who can work with them to help them understand how to analyze a customer's current environment and position this new technology, deployment services, education of the support services, and then post-sale support. So we got the Think Agile. We have other services for asset recovery if that's required. We also have an offering under a brand we call TrueScale, which allows you to repackage this whole thing into a operational expense model potentially, and or a managed service platform environment if you want as well. So really it's, let's understand what the customer wants to truly run their IT like, standalone, hybrid connected, you know, just give me the hardware to you run it for me. We can work with all those things. So yes, there's a plethora of service opportunity here.
Perfect. Yep. I know that, you know, a lot of my partners actually do leverage services, but there's always, you know, something that we might be missing. So it's always good to hear it from you.
Yep.
New to Microsoft. That's a really great transition from Brian here. So, you know, from customers that Microsoft deals with, you know, could you elaborate on some of the use cases that are ideal for this, for the Microsoft Azure Stack Hci, and then maybe even kind of let us know why the Microsoft Azure Stack Hci is really ideal for those use cases?
Yeah, I mean, I'll build a little bit on some of the talking points from earlier that I mentioned. And by the way, just listening to Phil, you know, so easily rattle through solution after offer after offer after offer should really give this group on this call, you know, confidence that there's going to be something there from Lenovo and Microsoft that you can tap into and dive deep on. So I just kind of wanted to say that it's always great just to continue to hear that and see how this partnership continues to grow. You know, when I think of, you know, some of the use cases around Azure Stack HCI, and I talked about, you know, the car example earlier, and kind of leveling up from there into something a little bit more reality is still at the core of the concept that data has gravity, and where data is being collected, we're going to want to put more compute and more things as close to that as possible. So the first thing that comes to my mind is retail. That's definitely an area where there's a lot of application where, you know, we can bring in, you know, single node type of configurations or appliance from Lenovo, you know, right into a branch store. So, you know, any brick and mortar location where there's a POS system that needs to be supported, a back-end inventory system that needs to be supported. And what I go to is actually, you know, cameras and sensors, and all of that data collection that's happening now, and, you know, how AI can then be used to, you know, transform that into insights about traffic or, you know, store traffic or parking garage traffic. Anything like that is where it's really relevant. So I see retail as a key space. Obviously, healthcare, there's unbelievable amounts of data that are being created, you know, bedside, right? And so again, it comes down to the ability to make decisions more quickly by bringing some of that compute power closer to where the data is residing. And I think any situation where you can find that to be taking place is where this is a relevant solution. And then, you know, look at the core, the value of it is when I think of your customers out there that have already made key investments into Azure or into public cloud services, obviously Azure being my preference here, is that they are looking to take advantage of those investments. They want to be able to extend them. And that's what Azure Stack HCI really offers them. It's the ability for them to bring that power of the cloud and the services around that closer to the edge, take advantage of a single pane of glass management approach, take advantage of extending security, extending, other services from Azure. And there's a whole list of different things that Azure Stack Hci can actually take advantage of. So any situation where you have a customer that has any on-prem footprint, they've made key investments in the cloud, and they are looking to combine these things into, let's just call it one, super solution approach, I think is really going to be relevant. And I would venture to guess that every single one of you that's listening to this right now can think of at least one or two customers where this is relevant. So sorry, I know I kind of extended on that, but I think those are the areas that I would go where I think Azure Stack Hci and the partnership with Lenovo is very relevant.
So Brian, I know Lenovo Think Agile can be leveraged for many other solutions, such as containers and data protection. What are your thoughts on this, and how are Microsoft and Lenovo working together for those type of solutions?
Ooh, great question. I'm going to defer some of that probably to Phil or Aaron here. The one thing I would say is, is going to be more on that security statement that I just made, which is, the ability for you to deploy these solutions, extend the extensive security policies that you already have in your Azure environment today down. I think that's, kind of such a unique place to be able to go. And so when I think of, data protection, or I think of security, anything like that, I don't know, Phil or Aaron, if you have any thoughts, specifically around additional solutions there related to, containers. I'll leave that to the smarter, more technical folks here.
Well, before we get on to containers from a security standpoint, one of the things I really like about the Azure Stack Hci solution, right? So when we talk about Azure Stack Hci specifically, remember that that's a new operating system from Microsoft, right? We're not talking about Windows anymore. We're talking about a brand new operating system running on Metal, right? And when we talk about that, in extension to running workloads on Azure, you gain those advantages on-prem, right? And one of those advantages right now is extended security updates. So, when I think about data protection, right, the one thing I think about is if I think retail, where this plays well, if I think manufacturing, where this plays well, if I think transportation, where this plays well, if I think oil and gas, where this plays well, and frankly, where we have opportunities in all those spaces right now, one of the things I think of is legacy OSs. If I had a nickel for every conversation I had about Windows Server 2012, 2008, 2016, yeah, I have a lot of nickels. What you get, though, is when you deploy those legacy operating systems onto the Azure Stack Hci solution, you're going to get free extended security updates from Microsoft. So that's a huge advantage because, again, a lot of those industries are governmentally regulated, right? They've got things like HIPAA, Sarbanes-Oxley, and so forth, that they need to make sure that these precautions are in place to protect not only their customers, but themselves, right? So if you have customers today that have applications running on some of these legacy operating systems, and yeah, they might have a panel working on a path to modernizing that application or so forth, but that's still a few months, quarters, even years out. This is a great way to bridge that and still keep them secure with their workload.
Yeah, I love that modernization statement there. So Phil, along that same line here, many customers are really opposed to this rip and replace approach that a lot of partners are trying to push. But so how does this Microsoft Azure Stack Hci solution really help to alleviate that concern? Oh, sorry, I think you're muted.
Yeah, that better?
Better.
Okay. Yeah, great question. So sorry about being unmuted. Anyways, so yeah, rip and replace, interesting concept, interesting reality. The challenge, I think, with a lot of rip and replace is over the past decades, we have had niche product technologies for niche solutions. And the challenge is we keep moving the ball as we move forward. Oh, we're going to do this. Oh, we're going to do this. Oh, we're going to do this. This was one of the concerns when cloud first came out because, oh, it's the new shiny snowflake that everybody's going to go to. We got to change from what we are to something else, right? So it was a little disappointing early on because of that mentality, right? It's like, why do I got to change again? But as was especially seen within the Microsoft Azure set, yes, there's been a change going to the cloud, but what they've done is this has become an ecosystem model now, where it wasn't just about going to the cloud; it was about integrating things together. So we have more of a seamless platform ecosystem to run workload and businesses in, right? And once you've now got into this structure, and really one of the key values of the Azure public cloud in this environment is, a focal AD, a focal security policy, a focal management structure for all your IT, whether it's in the cloud or not, right? And as we look at outside the cloud, when you get to HCI, hybrid cloud, when you get to IoT devices and IoT device management, data management across the entire ecosystem, right? You can manage all that from one place with one common architecture, right? So now, is it really rip and replace? Yes, you'll still need to change IoT devices and IoT sensors. You'll still need to change hybrid, edge servers as your workload outgrows their capacity. But fundamentally, if the architectural structure of the ecosystem is maintained, right, then it's no longer rip and replace. It's evolution, right? It's like taking your car to the garage and going from a 4-cylinder to a 6-cylinder, or taking your electric car in and getting a second motor put on the back wheel so you can go twice as fast. It's still the same thing. You're just improving it in a specific targeted manner to address specific resource capability limitations. And that is hugely efficient for customers. Rather than saying, oh, I'm going to go from this to something totally different, no matter what it is. Because I got to take all these skills, all this experience, all this knowledge, throw it away, and go to something else. This is the other great thing about the Azure ecosystem is, yeah, it's Azure, but the Azure, the way it's implemented and supported and run is similar to the way Windows Server was. And Windows Server is run and managed a lot like Windows Client. And who's not running Windows Client? A small percentage of us, right? You get to their Office applications, their database middleware, right? The extent of that ecosystem is huge. And although, yes, there's some lock into a solution here, there are lots of consistency and integration points built into that whole ecosystem. And then on top of that, it is an open ecosystem. So there are lots of choices of things to put on top of this to integrate within the environment. So from a skill, experience, efficiency point of view, for technology, the ecosystem makes huge sense. And as Aaron said right at the beginning, it's no longer about cloud first or on-prem only. It's about being cloud smart or right placing workloads or locating workload elements, because each part of this ecosystem has huge value and associated limitations, right? The goal of all this now is, once I decide what I want to do, how much work is it to get there, and where's the right places to place all the elements of that workload so I get the best business result at the best financial point.
Perfect.
Did that help?
Aaron, yeah. So Aaron, I know Lenovo has an offering that allows customers to put power and flexibility of the Microsoft Azure Stack Hci anywhere, really, to basically run business workloads reliably and safely outside of the data center. But best of all, for this Lenovo solution is unique in that they have it's been certified under Microsoft Azure Stack Hci program to run Microsoft S2D properly. In that regard, what are your thoughts on on that, and how can my partners and resellers really take advantage of that?
Yeah, absolutely, Pratik. I think you're talking about our SE350 solution, our RMX 1020 solution. And what's interesting about that is I loved your comment about the Titanic, right? The hardware's going down with the ship, right? What's interesting about that statement is that the Titanic is about 40% smaller than the average Carnival cruise ship these days. So I don't think people quite understand. Yes, maybe in proportion wise, hardware is not growing as fast as cloud, but hardware is still definitely a relevant solution and makes sense in a lot of instances. The SE350 though is really unique, right? So when we talk about the rest of our MX solution, it's 1U and 2U rack, right? Which is very similar to what our counterparts have to offer in the space. But the SE350 is really unique in the fact that it is about a third of the size of a 1U rack. It is telco mountable or bookshelf mountable, meaning that you don't need a rack necessarily, for things like retail, like Brian spoke about, or manufacturing, transportation, oil and gas. Just think about where this isn't going to sit in a server room, right? But it does some other interesting things, right? It's got 5G capability. It's NEBS compliant, which is a shock certification, right? So it can sit on a machine floor. There's milling going on, things like that. The floor isn't stable. You're not losing data. You're not having outages. It's also got temperature, much higher and lower temperature thermals that it can maintain operation. But the one thing that I really, really like about it, right, is when I talk about those different areas where we're seeing folks testing the server and implementing the server, those things have one thing in common, and that's not a secure server room, right? A lot of our customers do have data centers. That's very, very true. But when we talk about, edge customers, true edge solutions, maybe it sits in a manager's office. Maybe it's under the desk, right, where you're taking orders, things of that nature, or it's sitting in a closet somewhere. Maybe you have a single key lock on that closet if you're lucky, but sometimes you don't even have that. This system has what's called geofencing built into it. And what I mean by that is either through the WAN or through the 5G connection, if this system is relocated, picked up, moved, stolen, for lack of a better word, and it gets outside of its geofence, it'll start encrypting itself and securing your data. And that's a really key feature today. With everything going on, I think it's really, really smart to have those additional security features in place. But as you mentioned, this is also a certified solution with Microsoft, right? We've gone out. This runs a Xeon processor. This runs graphics intensive operations with its graphic card capability, and again, it's 5G capable. So a lot of use case scenarios for this device, and we really look forward to working with you guys to see where we can implement this solution across your customers.
Thank you for that. I was gonna not mention
Yeah,
Edge because
you ran out and got
I
it.
think yeah. So Edge is something that I'm passionate about. So I love we brought that in towards the end here.
Yeah.
And finally, really, I just want to kind of close it out with a question for all my guests. Sustainability is top of mind for many of my customers, especially when it comes to deciding
Have you never
who to do
said that
business with.
quote?
So my question to you is, how
Okay.
how have your roles changed due to the ESG, better known as that environmental, social, and governance practices within your organizations? Phil, what are your thoughts?
So simply put, ESG and all the items around that are becoming a part of everything we do these days. When I look at the solutions I work with customers on building, designing, solutions that drive less electrical power requirements, manage heat more effectively, and heat is becoming a huge problem in server technology these days. Shipping, packaging materials, every aspect of how we deliver products and solutions physically and run them are being within Lenovo reevaluated, rethought, retooled. When I look at the things we have out now and we're coming out, we're trying to address as much of the environmental challenges as we can. We are already shipping with our products, if customers want it, a CO2 credit certification. So there are electrical savings with our servers. Customers can take advantage of a CO2, if we do the CO2 carbon credit thing, they'll have documentation to take advantage of that immediately on our servers. Cooling these new processors coming out is going to be a huge challenge, and we've already shown on our Neptune class of systems, which aren't Think Agile today, but locally, internally water-cooled or liquid-cooled environments to reduce the heat load on those servers, on the environment. Therefore, the power load on the data center or wherever these things are placed. So lots of things going on, and it's constantly moving and changing.
Perfect. Yeah. Ryan, how is your work affected?
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft, this is a huge priority for us. And, before I speak to some of the specifics around what we're doing as an organization, which, we've been standing behind for a number of years now, one of the things Aaron mentioned and Phil built on what you just said when it comes to these specific solutions around kind of these smaller node retail type instances, we're starting to talk about, server type box, that doesn't require a server room. which doesn't require cooling or fans, right? And so just the electrical savings alone and the downstream impacts of all of that, not getting into how it's delivered and everything else. I mean, that alone, we were just talking about significant cost savings and consumption savings more than anything else. From a Microsoft, point of view, it is built into our entire DNA and everything that we are doing today. We've made public statements around our goal of being carbon negative by 2030. So not just being carbon neutral, but actually carbon negative. And there's significant investments, billions of dollars that Microsoft is investing to shift the way in which we power our data centers, to shift the way in which our workforce functions. The other thing I would say too is think about the ways that the technology and the partnership between Lenovo and Microsoft can also empower all of our customers to take a much more aggressive approach to this. When you think about smart buildings and you think about how these can be deployed to manage, a smart building environment, how to turn on and off AC in certain zones, all of this together has significant sustainability impacts. And so, I think beyond just the direct things that we're doing as an organization, but where our technology and our software in partnership with Lenovo and your hardware of the broader impacts we can have as an entire ecosystem toward sustainability. And I'm excited about what that continues to grow into.
Yeah, thank you for that. Aaron, what about you?
Yeah, so over the summer here in Raleigh, where I'm located, it rains at least a good 2 or 3 days a week, typically in the afternoon. And Lenovo, to combat that, decided to put solar panels across their entire parking lot area to save us from the rain as we run out. Now, I think they put them in there though to speak to the sustainability that we're all talking about. And another thing we announced in July here at Lenovo is a partnership with Merck, right? So we control our own supply chain. We're a lot different than a lot of the other OEMs out there, right? We do build a lot of our own components. We bend a lot of our own metal, not only to deliver what we think are unique solutions, but also control the process, right? And we realize that shipping of those raw materials and finished goods is expensive. So again, partnering with Merck, they're a biofuels transportation company, right? They don't rely on fossil fuels, which reduces the carbon emissions by about 80% when moving product around. And we move a lot of product around, as you can guess. So we are really set in finding ways to deliver more and more hardware. Sorry, Brian, but do it really, eco-friendly and make an impact on humanity. Really trying to set a standard for the industry in that regard.
Yep, thank you for that great insight. I know we didn't even get to MSPs or even an SMB conversation, but I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I think we're even over a little bit here, but so let's kind of stop here for now. But before we conclude, I want to give each one of you in the audience a call to action. First, if you haven't already signed up for our booster program, please click on the link in the chat to do so, because the booster program offers you, our partners, free pre-sales tech support so you can deliver the solutions your customers need and to win more business in the long run. Next is the opportunity of MDF. That can really help you to grow your customer base. Also, this program can get you access to Ingram Micro's exclusive ISG demo program and many other benefits. But one of the probably the coolest thing I could think of, the most exciting new item that they added was the Yellowstone Contest. You'll need to be registered for the booster program to be eligible, but it sounds like it's going to be an amazing prize, so definitely register today. And second, Ingram Micro could not be more excited to be part of Lenovo's new initiative called Lenovo 360. We're excited to bring together Lenovo IDG and ISG parts of the business to provide you a true one Lenovo experience. We want to help you grow, acquire new customers, and even reinvest back into your business. Through Lenovo 360, we'll be bringing you fully baked solutions, that encompass endpoints, data center, as well as services. For that reason, we'll be combining forces with our IDG team to deliver the holistic experience. Please reach out to Jamie. She put her contact information in the chat box with any questions you have. I would actually ask about the Yellowstone thing first, but definitely reach out to her. And finally, I want to thank my guests, Brian Bottalico, Aaron Rothfuss, and Phil Searles for their great insights. Hopefully we can have a round 2 in the future. Additionally, I want to thank Microsoft, Lenovo, and Ingram Micro for their unwavering support. Okay, I think that's it for now. Let's make this your best year ever. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, Pratik.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys.